Public Discourse Statement, Karmic Sausage. Well, I got a call from a meat packing plant. They'd run out of meat to pack. So I sent them 10 tons of tofu, and they said, well, what do we do with that? I said, well, inject some colors, add some artificial flavor, taste, use up that stockpile, the lips and tongues. Oh yeah, we'll leave nothing to waste. And then we'll slap on a fancy label, and we'll claim it's the best of the best. We'll say it's from a organic, solar-powered farm out west. Oh, the meat packers were thankful. I'd saved their bottom line. Doorbell rang, I hung up the phone. Oh, I sure was feeling fine. And it was a paper boy with a collection bill, and he told me what I owed, and I said, hey, I just paid up this week, and he says, no, that's not how the paper's sold. You see, you only bought the front page, the rest of the paper's more, and from out of the shadow steps his father, who says, the boy is not to be ignored. So I handed him the money, though I could tell it wasn't right, but his father held a billy club and seemed itching for a fight. And closing the door of my wallet, I decided to go for a drive. With the windows down, sun shining, stereo playing, once again, I'm feeling fine. And I pull up to a red light and my engine seized, and a tow truck happened to be behind me. He gladly took the lead. And arriving at the garage, I entered on my knees, and I said to the mechanic, can you help me? And he said, you better start with the word please. So I say, can you please help me? And he says, I don't know. Pointing to the bus stop, he says, it's time for me to go. So I'm walking out the door and my cell phone begins to ring. Seems the meat packing plant had gotten busted as part of a bigger sting. Those colors we added had made several people sick, and they put our tofu under a microscope and exposed our dirty trick. So I stepped into a diner because I needed some time to think, and I ordered a piece of pumpkin pie and a gin and tonic to drink. And the newspaper there on the counter, there I was on page 1, spelling out in detail all the damage that I'd done. And I wanted to finish the story, but it continued on page 26, and the diner had only bought the front page. But the guy a couple stools down, oh, he said he had it. And he was a local politician. He gave me a little wink. He says, hey, you contribute to my campaign. I'll tell the people what to think. So he handed me the paper. I gave him money for his campaign, and he seemed like someone I could trust, though I never did get his name. And now, sipping on my gin and savoring my pie and promises from my politician, once again I'm feeling fine. So I open up to the comics. I skip the story on page 26, and when I see that it's last week's Garfield, I realize that I've been tricked. And out the window, I can see the politician run, and the waitress drops a check for 2 pieces of pie, and I tell her, hey, I only had 1. So picking up the phone, she threatened to call the cops. I paid for the pie I never ate and pleaded with her to stop. So I'm walking out the door. Once again, my cell phone begins to ring. This time, it's my wife calling from her therapist's office. She's decided to tell me everything. She never really loved me. It had only been an act. She married me for the money. This was the only fact. So, headed back towards home, I'm feeling rather lost. My head was spinning in circles and my stomach turned and tossed. But I wrote it off to nerves because it had been a long day. And then I vomited in the bushes and I spotted something gray. And picking out a bone from the remnants of my pumpkin pie, I realized I had it coming and began to quietly cry. And as I stood there crying, a little girl comes up to me and she hands me a Kleenex and pats me on the back and says, Mister, that was absolutely free. And I ask her, what do you really want? She says, hey, just to lend a helping hand. And seeing that she was sincere, I began to understand.